The Spanish trailer for the SpongeBob movie has a lot of words that, to be honest, I have rarely seen in any textbook being mentioned, so we're going to be breaking it down word by word. I'll give you the meanings, different uses, and even warnings for each word, and as a native Spanish speaker, where you might find it in some cultures and not in others. I will be using Fluent U for this because it is way quicker to stop and translate with it, so if you want to follow along, feel free to click in the description below for a 2-week free trial. First, we will watch the trailer and I need you to write down any and all words that you don't fully understand. Then, together, we're going to go through the trailer and break down each and every word where I give you all of their meanings. Finally, I need you to review your notes and add any new meanings to words that you might have already known before, as well as the words that you didn't know before, so that you can review it in your own time.
Por fin, ya es mío. Con este libro mágico, cualquier plan malévolo que escriba se hará realidad. Pero para aprovechar su poder, necesito la última página, protegida debajo de la superficie por un héroe legendario.
¿Quieres dejar de tocar ese pianito?
Perdón.
¡Al ataque! Creo que faltan unos minutos para que llegue. ¡Ah! ¡Está sobre nosotros!
¡Atranca la puerta! ¡Ya está!
¡En el blanco!
De Paramount Animation y Nickelodeon Movies.
¡Ese pirata va a destruir nuestro mundo!
¿No crees que exageras?
Patricio, ¿qué estás haciendo?
Vandalizando cosas. ¿Pero esa no es tu propia casa?
Para salvar su mundo,
¡Vamos, equipo! ¡Recuperemos ese libro!
deben venir al nuestro.
Pero, ¿dónde estamos? ¡Oh, oh!
En 2015,
¡Una marsopa peluda gigante! ¡Encallada! Tenemos que devolverlos a todos al agua. ¡Usen toda su fuerza!
Aquí huele espantoso.
llegará una película en tercera dimensión tan sexy
¿Dónde estuviste toda mi vida?
¡Ya está me incómodo!
y tan extrema
¡Ahí está el libro! ¡Es nuestro turno de reescribir la historia!
que necesitarás nuevos pantalones.
Deben hacer ejercicio. Creo que van a mi gimnasio.
¡Está bien! ¡Te vamos a lastimar!
Estamos fritos.
¿Eh?
Son bellísimas.
Bob Esponja, un héroe fuera del agua en 3D.
Señor Super, acabe con ellos. Te hubiéramos escogido un mejor superpoder, Patricio.
Por fin, ya es mío.
Por fin means finally, in the end, at last. It's something that you use like the word finally in English when you finally got into a point that you were looking forward to getting to. So you will say, por fin ya es mío, like they say in this phrase. But you could also say, por fin I have finished my homework. Por fin he terminado mi tarea. Ya can be used as now or as very soon, but in this context is used as finally, already, right now, as of now. So by saying ya es mío, I'm saying already it is mine. Es means is and mío means mine.
Por fin, ya es mío. Con este libro mágico, cualquier plan malévolo que escriba se hará realidad.
Con este libro mágico, cualquier plan malévolo que escriba se hará realidad. Con means with, este means this one. Libro means book, el libro, masculine. Mágico, meaning magical, and remember that in Spanish the adjective always comes after the noun, whereas in English you might find it as magical book. In Spanish you will say libro mágico. Cualquier means any, whatever I can come up with, or any of those. You will use this word in a situation where somebody is asking you which one will you prefer, and you could say cualquiera, as if I would prefer any of the options available. But you may also use it as I can do potentially anything, like he's saying in this phrase. cualquier plan malévolo, any evil plan. Plan means plan. Malévolo means malevolent. However, it is used in Spanish a lot more than you will hear the word malevolent in English. It's a lot more common to say malévolo. And a lot of countries will have their own slangification, so to speak, of this word, such as malevo, que means that or what. Escriba, anything that I write. Escriba is a conjugation of escribir, and it means write. Se hará refers to will become, will transform into a reality. Se hará realidad, will become reality, will turn into reality.
Cualquier plan malévolo que escriba se hará realidad. Pero para aprovechar su poder, necesito la última página.
Pero para poder aprovechar su poder, necesito la última página. Pero means but, para, in order to, or for. Para can be used in a few different ways. For example, it can be used as a prefix, like it is used in English for a word like paranormal, but it's also used to say for someone. So for example, if you're buying a gift for somebody, you will say, estoy comprando un regalo para alguien. However, in this case, it is also used as in order to. So for example, pero para aprovechar su poder, but to be able to, but in order to be able to take advantage of its power. Aprovechar means to be able to take advantage of something, to take an opportunity. Su means its or his or her. Poder, masculine. El poder means power. Necesito means need, but it refers to myself. It doesn't need the pronoun. People don't usually say yo necesito. They will just say necesito, because with the ending of the word, it just makes sense that you're referring to yourself. La, the, feminine. Última means last, and if it was masculine, it would be último. Página. La página, feminine, page. But in order to take advantage of its power, I need the last page.
Pero para aprovechar su poder, necesito la última página, protegida debajo de la superficie por un héroe legendario.
Protegida debajo de la superficie por un héroe legendario. Protegida refers to something being protected. It's an adjective, and here it's telling us that it's protecting something that is feminine. If it said protegido, it's telling us that it's something masculine that is being protected. Debajo de. Debajo means below, underneath. The addition of the word de after debajo means that it is below of. They're about to tell us what it is below of. La, the. Superficie means surface. So it is protected, something feminine is protected under the surface. Por means by. Un, a. Héroe, hero. Legendario. This basically means legendary. Again, remember in Spanish the adjective comes after the noun.
De la superficie por un héroe legendario.
¿Quieres dejar de tocar ese pianito?
Perdón.
¿Quieres dejar de tocar ese pianito? ¿Quieres is a way of asking somebody, a person that you're directly speaking to, if they want something. So for example, you could say, ¿Quieres helado? Do you want ice cream? You don't need to add the pronoun or say, ¿Tú no quieres helado? You just have to say, ¿Quieres? ¿Quieres dejar de? Dejar de refers only to stopping to do something. However, if you say dejar without de, it can mean abandoning something or leaving something behind, or it can also mean to stop to do something. Tocar means to touch. Ese, that. Pianito. Now, pianito is a diminutive of piano, which basically just means piano. You're going to find this a lot in Spanish-speaking countries where when they're referring to something in a cute or maybe even sarcastic way, they will use a diminutive of it. You might sometimes even hear people using a word like pianititito. Though this is not grammatically correct, it is very common to keep adding on the ttt to put emphasis on how small something is.
Perdón.
¡Al ataque!
Al ataque. I recommend that you memorize this phrase together, al ataque. It's uncommon to say ataque, which means attack. Usually people will say al ataque. Or in a different imperative form, they might say ataquen, referring to a group of people. But memorize al ataque. It basically means attack.
Creo que faltan unos minutos para que llegue.
Creo que faltan unos minutos para que lleguen. Creo, I believe, que, that. Faltan. Faltan means they are missing, but in this sense it's used as they are left or is left until. It can be used in other contexts like there is so much time until something happens, faltan 5 minutos. Or it can be used in the context of somebody being absent in a situation. So for example, when somebody doesn't show up to class, you will say falta, él falta, faltó. Martín faltó a clases hoy. Unos means some, a few. Minutos means minutes in plural. ¿Para qué? ¿Para qué? In this situation means so that something happens. However, you can also use it as a question. You might say, ¿para qué quieres que haga eso? What do you want me to do that for? Llegue is a conjugation of llegar, which means to arrive somewhere. So in this case, Patrick is referring to the plane that is coming, and he's saying, I think that there are a few minutes left so that they arrive here. However, when you translate it to English, you would rather say it like, I think he'll arrive in a few minutes.
Creo que faltan unos minutos para que llegue. ¡Ah, está sobre nosotros!
Está sobre nosotros. Está means to be. In Spanish, you will find that the verb to be is divided into two different verbs. Estar refers to physically being somewhere, to be in a location. However, the other verb that to be is divided into in Spanish will be ser, which means to be somebody or to be something. So for example, if I was saying that I am a lawyer, I wouldn't say estoy abogado. I will say soy un abogado. And if you were saying that you are at home, you wouldn't say soy en mi casa. You will say estoy en mi casa. Just remember that whenever you are translating to be to Spanish, it can be one or the other. In this case, it is estar. Sobre means above, on top. However, here it's used as upon. But Patrick is saying he is on top of us. He is above us, physically. Nosotros means us.
¡Atranca la puerta!
Atranca la puerta. Atranca is a conjugation of atrancar. Atrancar is a word that means to stop something, to bolt, bar, block something, as Fluent Use says, but also used as somebody stopping something, in this case, the door. It makes sense if you think about it as the word trancar. To trancar something means to make something be stuck somewhere. So if you trancas or atrancas la puerta means that you're stopping the door. However, if, for example, a car can't move because the mud or the water is too high and it's gotten into the engine, the car is trancado.
¡Atranca la puerta! ¡Ya está!
Ya está is a word that is oftentimes used in every single Spanish-speaking country to refer that something has been done or to refer that something is finished. It literally translates to already is. Ya, now, already. Está, is. Alternatively, some people also say ya está listo, and that means it is ready.
¡En el blanco!
De Paramount Animation y Nickelodeon Movie.
En el blanco. This literally translates to the white. However, the white in Spanish refers to the bullseye, the target. If you're talking about el blanco, although it also means the white, the color white, you may also be referring to your target in shooting practice, your target with an arrow, or your target in a more metaphorical sense. For example, mi blanco es recibirme antes de los 23. My target is to finish my degree before I'm 23.
De Paramount Animation y Nickelodeon Movies.
¡Ese pirata va a destruir nuestro mundo!
Ese pirata va a destruir nuestro mundo. Ese refers to that. That guy. However, in Spanish, when somebody's asking you, for example, who did you speak to? You can also just say ese. It's very informal, so be careful where you use it, but if you simply say ese referring to somebody, you don't need to say esa persona, you can just say ese. But in this case, you say ese pirata, the pirate, masculine pirate, el pirata. Va a means is going to, go to, goes to. So they're going to perform an action. It doesn't mean that they're going to a specific place, although it can be used in that way. It means that they're going to perform a specific action. Destruir is a verb which means destroy, to destroy. So the pirate is going to destroy. What are they going to destroy? Nuestro, our mundo, world. El mundo.
Ese pirata va a destruir nuestro mundo.
¿No crees que exageras?
¿No crees que exageras? No crees, no. Crees, think or believe more often. So it will literally translate to no believe. Don't you think que that exageras? That means exaggerate and it is conjugated from the infinitive exagerar. No crees que exageras? Don't believe that exaggerate you. It literally translates to that, but if you're trying to make sense, it means don't you think you're exaggerating.
Patricio, ¿qué estás haciendo?
Vandalizando cosas.
Patricio, ¿qué estás haciendo? Patricio is the Spanish name for Patrick. ¿Qué estás haciendo is asking what are you doing? ¿Qué? What? Estás, are, doing, are, remember to be. Haciendo means doing.
Vandalizando cosas.
Vandalizando cosas means vandalizing things. Vandalizando, vandalizing, cosas, things.
Cosas. Pero esa no es tu propia
Pero esa no es tu propia casa, pero, but, esa, that, feminine, no, no, es, is, tu, your, propia means of your own, of one's own, casa, house. But that no is your, of your own house. But isn't that your own house? My advice to you is that you don't try and translate Spanish sentences into English to try and make sense out of them. Forget about English. Sometimes if you need the direct translation for a noun or a verb, it's okay to do so. But I would rather you use a Spanish dictionary if you want to know the meaning of a word, because you need to start thinking in Spanish for all these different structures and phrasal patterns. And that is why watching movies and TV shows is such a good way to learn a language. It's because you almost learn by osmosis, by absorption, by constantly exposing yourself to the language, which is super easy to do with Fluent U. So if you want to follow along with this or any of our other videos, then just check the link in the description below for 2 weeks for free on us.
Para salvar su mundo.
Para salvar su mundo, in order to. Salvar is to save something or somebody. Su, his or their, in this case, it's referring to mundo, el mundo, in order to save their world.
Salvar su mundo.
¡Vamos, equipo! ¡Recuperemos ese libro!
Vamos, equipo, recuperemos ese libro. Vamos means let's go, let's move forward, let's go team, let's go equipo, which means team and it's masculine. Recuperemos means to recover something. Comes from recuperar, and right now it is being conjugated in the imperative form because he is telling them to recover, to get back something. And that something is ese, that, libro, book, el libro.
Deben venir al nuestro.
Deben venir al nuestro. Deben means they must. It comes from the verb deber, and it is conjugated in the third form plural right now. So, ellos deben venir. Venir means to come here towards where I am or towards where the speaker is. Venir. If it wasn't towards where I am, you will say ir. But in this case, because they're referring to our world, they're saying venir. Al, to the, it's referring to what the action is being applied to. Nuestro, ours.
Deben venir al nuestro.
Pero, ¿dónde estamos?
pero means but. Estamos. Where, está, be, mos, us. Where are we?
Pero, ¿dónde estamos?
En 2015,
En 2015, notice how in Spanish, whenever you're referring to a number, especially a long number like 2015, you separate each word. In 2000, it's separated and it means 2000. If you were saying, for example, 3000, you will say 3000, again, separated. 15, 15.
¡Una marsopa peluda gigante! ¡Encallada!
Una refers to a, feminine. Marsopa, porpoise, is an animal that in some countries, especially coastal countries like Spain, you might hear a lot more. Some other countries may use different words for big things. If you can relate something to somebody and make an allegory or make some form of comparison, that's very good because it is very common in the Spanish language. Peluda means hairy, gigante, gigantic, huge. Remember, we have two adjectives here and they both come after the noun because that's just how you do it in Spanish. Una marsopa peluda gigante. Notice how in English in the description below it says a giant hairy porpoise.
¡Encallada!
Encallada means beached, but it can also be used as stranded, so it can be used for whales or other sea animals, as well as for boats.
¡Encallada! Tenemos que devolverlos a todos al agua. Usen toda su fuerza.
Aquí huele espantoso.
Tenemos que devolverlos a todos al agua. Usen toda su fuerza. Tenemos que means we must, and it implies that you're about to say what you must do or what you must partake in. In this case, tenemos que devolverlos, return them. Los tells us that they're talking about them, about something external and in plural. So, tenemos que devolverlos a what? Todos, all of them. Al agua, to the water. Usen is imperative of use. You all use. Use. All, toda, comes from todo, toda, but toda refers to feminine. Su, your, fuerza. Feminine for strength.
Devolverlos a todos al agua. Usen toda su fuerza.
Aquí huele espantoso.
Aquí huele espantoso. It smells horrible here. It smells dreadful here. Aquí, here, huele comes from oler, huele, smells, espantoso. This means dreadful, but it relates a bit more to ghastly, and it kind of gives the idea of something from like a haunted mansion or something so terrifying that it's almost paranormal. So in this scene, they're saying that the smell from this man that they believe to be a purpose is paranormally horrible.
llegará una película en tercera dimensión tan sexy.
¿Dónde estuviste toda mi vida?
Llegará una película en tercera dimensión tan sexy. Llegará means will arrive. It will arrive. Something will arrive. What? Una, a, película, movie, feminine, in tercera dimensión. Tercera means third, dimension, dimension. Now, in English, usually you just say 3D, and don't worry, you don't need to say tercera dimensión every time in Spanish. If you just say 3D, most people will understand. Tan sexy. So sexy. When you say the word tan in Spanish, you're usually referring to something that is so something. If, for example, you're saying that a man is so smart, you will say él es tan inteligente. Or if you're saying that your dog is so obedient, you will say mi perro es tan obediente. Sexy is just the same as English. It's a word that's carried over to Spanish, so you can just say sexy as you would in English and give it the exact same use.
Llegará una película en tercera dimensión tan sexy.
¿Dónde estuviste toda mi vida?
¿Dónde estuviste toda mi vida? Where were you my whole life? ¿dónde? Questioning where. Estuviste, were you. Toda, all, the entirety of, but referring to something feminine, which is me, my life. Vida being feminine. That's why toda is feminine.
¡Ya hasta me incomodó!
Ya hasta me incomodó. Ya means now or already, but in this case it doesn't add any new information to the phrase. It just says that you're emphasizing whatever you're about to say. Hasta means until or up to, but in this case it refers to even. Now, if you want to use this sentence, what I would recommend is that you again just memorize it. Ya hasta me incomodó. Ya hasta. Remember that whenever you're trying to say that something went so far that it got to a certain point, you can just say hasta and then say what happened. In this case, me, something that happened to me. Incomodó, made me awkward. So that even went as far as making me awkward. You just say ya hasta me incomodó.
Es nuestro turno de reescribir la historia.
Es nuestro turno de reescribir la historia means is. So in this case, it will work as it is, but you just say is. Nuestro, our, turno, turn, to or of. Reescribir, to rewrite. It's like escribir, which means to write. You just rewrite it. La feminine historia, story. Historia, however, it's used both as story and history.
De reescribir la historia.
¿Qué necesitarás? Nuevos pantalones.
¿Qué necesitarás nuevos pantalones? Means that you will need new pants. Que again doesn't add any new information to the sentence, it just emphasizes it. Necesitarás is the future for you will need. Nuevos means new in plural. Pantalones, pants, trousers.
Deben hacer ejercicio.
Deben hacer ejercicio can mean both that they should be doing exercise or that they must be doing exercise. You gotta kind of guess it by context. In this case, it means that they must be doing exercise. Should, must. Hacer, to do. Ejercicio, exercise, masculine.
Creo que van a mi gimnasio.
Creo que van a mi gimnasio means I think they go to my gym. Creo means I believe, but if you translate it to English, it sounds more like I think. Que, that, van, a, they go to. We get that it is they because it says van instead of va. A, to, my, mi, gimnasio is just a gym, a fitness center.
Está bien, te vamos a lastimar.
Está bien, te vamos a lastimar. Está bien is a sentence that you should memorize because it always goes together and it means the same as okay. Está bien, I understand, I agree. Te vamos means we are going to something to you. We're going to do something to you, but you have to say what it is that you're going to do. In this case, they do, and it says te vamos a, we're going to you, lastimar. Lastimar means to hurt, to injure, to wound something or somebody.
Está bien, te vamos a lastimar.
Estamos fritos.
Estamos fritos means we are fried. Estamos means we are. Fritos, fried. However, in Spanish, when you say that you're fried, it basically means you are done for, that you are beyond salvation, that you are in really big trouble.
Son bellísimas.
Bellísimas comes from the word bellas, but it is an augmentative, meaning that it is much grander than the word bellas. So, for example, in Spanish, you could say very beautiful, like muy bellas, but you could also say bellísimas.
Señor, super, acabe con ellos.
Señor super means Mr. Super. Acabe con comes from acabar con. Acabar con something, acabar con algo means to finish with something, to terminate something like a relationship or even to finish something like a piece of work. For example, I could say, he acabado con mi tarea. I have finished my homework. But you could also say, if you're dating somebody called Michael, he acabado con Mike. I have finished the relationship with Mike. Ellos means them. Acabe con ellos right now is being used as the imperative, but it is used in a formal manner, probably because SpongeBob is talking to Patrick as Mr. Super Super, which is like some alter ego, so he uses the formal form in Spanish. If he wasn't using the formal form, if he was just using the informal form, he would say acaba con ellos, because it's referring to tú. Tú acaba con ellos. However, now it's using usted. Usted acabe con ellos.
Te hubiéramos escogido un mejor superpoder, Patricio.
Te hubiéramos escogido un mejor superpoder, Patricio. Te, us, to you, like the action that we apply to you. What action? Hubiéramos escogido. This is the past perfect subjunctive, and if you want to make more sense of it, it's something that you will say if you wish you had done something. So, te hubiéramos escogido, we would have chosen for you. It's almost saying as if, I wish we had chosen something else for you. Or we should have chosen something else for you. It's almost like wishing. You wish that something had happened. Another way, for example, if you send somebody to buy some groceries and they get the wrong groceries and they come back, you could tell them, hubieras comprado otra cosa. I wish you would have bought something else. A, mejor, better, superpoder. Superpoder is written separately, however, it basically means superpower. Poder means poder and it is masculine, el poder. Patricio is Patrick's name in Spanish. Wow, that was a lot of words, and I'm sure that some of those words that you might already have known, now you know some new meanings to them. So, review all the notes that you took, look at them in your own time, rewatch this video if you need to. I know that it has a lot of new information, especially if you're new to the language. And if you want to try Fluent U for free for 2 weeks, click on the video description below. Trust me, it is worth it. And if you want to learn Spanish real quick with some simple tricks, then click on that video to the right over there. I'll see you there.